Quest to Save the World, the critically acclaimed Nobel Prize winning New York Times best-selling book, actually has a sequel. Yeah, that's right, I bet you didn't know that. Everyone knows about Quest to Save the World, the first Minecraft book I ever wrote back in 2016. And, for good reason. This book is a masterpiece of modern literature. The greatest authors of all time, Mark Twain, Charles Dickens, Shakespeare. Get out of here. Sit down. Your time is over. Mega Mastermind, with his incredibly well-crafted book, Quest to Save the World, is here to stay. But what many of you don't know is that Quest to Save the World does in fact have a sequel. And unlike Quest, this book is more of a mystery, mainly because half of it was actually never released. Adventures in Anarchy is the official sequel to Quest to Save the World, and was released pretty much a year after Quest to Save the World, in December 2017. And this book continues the story of Quest, kind of picks up where Quest left off, and is essentially set, ironically, 1 year after the events of Quest to Save the World. But a lot of people don't know about it because it had a very short time on Amazon. See, while Quest was on there since 2016 for a year, Adventures in Anarchy, after I published it, it didn't do too well. The only people who bought it were Noah and Lilia. And to this day, I regret that they bought it, and I wish I could refund their money, but to this day, I don't know of a way to do that. But Quest had a very short lifespan, because shortly after publishing it, I decided I didn't really want to do any more Minecraft books, and I just decided to take them off the shelf. So about a month after Adventures in Anarchy was published, I took both Quest and Adventures off the shelf. And who knows, maybe might release them to the public again for free. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But here's why Adventures in Anarchy is so unique. Only half of it was ever released. That's right. You know how it said Book 1 in the Mastermind trilogy on Quest? Yeah, trilogy. It was supposed to be 3 books. However, something happened with Adventures. I started writing it about the same time that I started writing Quest, only a year later. However, Adventures was a much bigger and better book. Arguably, it is better than Quest. It's better written, better grammar, better everything. But I mean, come on, Quest to Save the World is Quest to Save the World. You can't beat that. I mean, where else would you find Toast Waffle flying a plane into a giant ship to stop it from blowing up the planet? But Quest to Save the World, in my opinion, at least taking it seriously, is in fact the inferior book to Adventures in Anarchy. Adventures is better. Adventures is also bigger, and I noticed that when I was writing. Now, Adventures has less chapters than Quest to Save the World, but just Adventures in Anarchy Part 1 is bigger than Quest, simply because even though it has less chapters, the chapters themselves are a lot longer than Quest's chapters are. And that's only half the book, so what I decided to do, since I want to meet the 1-year anniversary release date, I decided to cut the book in half, release the first half of one date, and release the second half a month later. Obviously, that never happened, only the first half was ever released. Now, a lot of you read Adventures Part 1, and that's good. But I think it's finally time I tell you what was going to happen in Adventures in Anarchy Part 2. Now, this isn't going to be like a detailed video or anything. This is literally going to be me just explaining the plot and what I originally planned to do for Adventures Part 2. All the ideas are mine alone. I came up with these all by myself. However, I do have to mention that it is loosely based on a few movies, such as Batman Begins, Man of Steel, and even a little bit of Spider-Man in there. But most of the ideas are my own. And for those of you who didn't read Adventures Part 1, too bad, because I'm not explaining what happens in Part 1. Okay, here we go. So, as you remember, at the end of Part 1, Mega was heading back to Megacraft from Corinthius. So, he gets back to Megacraft, and he arrives where he left off in that, what did I call it, Duffsburg? He arrives in the town of Duffsburg. I came up with that name because I once had an alt called Shorty McDuff, and I just slapped Berg at the end of Duff. So, anyway, he arrives back in Duffsburg, and he actually encounters that fisherman that he bought the boat from. And Mega's just like, "Hi, how you doing?" and leaves the boat there for him. It's a different boat, obviously, because you remember he took the World Crafter's boat back, but he leaves that boat there, and I think he was going to tell the fisherman, like, "Don't tell anyone that I was here." So he leaves and starts to head back towards Mine City. He hitchhikes his way back to Mine City, which is a very dangerous thing to do, obviously, but I mean, who cares? And he doesn't get recognized because he puts on this hood and covers up his mouth, like, with a big, long jacket, so no one can really tell who he is. But he manages to hitchhike his way back to Mine City, and he goes back. No one knows he's back yet. He goes back to the Capitol building, and he sees Chet and Bounty, well, Jacob, but in the book they're Chet and Bounty. He sees Chet and Bounty just kind of talking, and I think either Chet or Bounty's, one of them says is like, things have been going well, or things have been going downhill since Mega left. Haven't heard from him in 6 months, by the way. Mega was in Corinthians for 6 months. Just want to tell you that now because that's going to be important later. He was in Corinthians for 6 months. But after that, and Mega, what he does is he climbs up the building and he climbs into the window where Bounty and Chet are talking, and of course they don't recognize him at first, so they think it's an intruder, and they're about to call security when Mega takes off his hood and reveals that it's Mega. And at first, like, their reactions were gonna be shock first, then anger, and they start yelling at him. They're like, "Where the hell did you go all this time?" And eventually they just give up, and they just all have one big giant group hug. Well, not giant, it's like 3 of them. But yeah, that's essentially how that was gonna go. So essentially, Mega explained, this wasn't gonna be part of the book, it was just gonna be like a paragraph, but Mega explains where he was. He tells them the whole story of Corinthians and everything that went down. They ask him why he left, and Mega said he really just at this point doesn't know, but he guessed it was probably because he was so stressed and tired and just wanted to get away from all responsibilities entirely. Mega, or Chet and Bounty chastise him for going to Corinthians, because saying that he could have died at any moment had he not been rescued by Nakoju and the others. But then Mega asks how things have been going here, and they say pretty well. The government's, because don't forget, Mega is the leader of Megacraft. I don't remember if I had him elected or not. I said he inherited the country, but I think I say somewhere that he was elected. I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was. But they say things have been going well there, now that they established a council, which is like the Congress or Senate. But they don't know how people are going to react now that Mega's back. And Mega asks where Kara is, because she's nowhere to be found, and Chet tells him that shortly after Mega left, she left too. She moved to America. And the point of that is because at that point, Claire and I were really no longer friends. So I had to somehow write her out of the story, and that's how I decided to do that. And she said and I have this little thing where I say that they keep in contact every so often, which is kind of what Claire and I do now, sort of. But yeah, so Mega reveals himself to be back to a mixed reception. Some people like that he's back. Other people still want him gone again because they want a new leader, because they think everyone kind of blames Mega for the whole Herobrine thing, which happened a year ago. That's the reason why people don't like him. The Herobrine thing that Mega's getting blamed for. But one person in particular who really, really doesn't like him back, the best character in the entire trilogy, other than Toast Waffle, of course, because no one can top that god of a character, Dr. Harry Larry really does not like Mega being back, and he just isn't gonna let that happen. I mean, like, he literally already killed the freaking mayor of Mine City, so, I mean, like, he really has nothing more to lose at this point. So, what he does is he, puts on his Entity 303 costume. I'm sorry, his Wither Knight costume. And, decides, you know what, Mega's back. I'm gonna send him a message and terrorize people. So he gets on a skeleton horse and start with his henchmen, starts like going on a rampage through downtown Mine City, and he splashes his. I obviously drew this inspiration from Scarecrow from Batman, but he splashes his fear potion, which I say it's like a mix of a poison potion, a healing potion, in a harming potion, and it creates fear. Don't ask me how that makes fear. Dr. Harry Larry discovered it somehow. But he gets on his skeleton horse. He's wearing a mask that also alters his voice, so no one knows it's Harry. But he gets on his horse and rides into downtown Mine City. Now, I'm going to stop right there. There are 2 chapters of part 2 that I actually have fully written out. This is one of them. I think I call it Wither Knight's Rampage or something. I might release it after this video, I don't know. But essentially, Harry as Wither Knight rampages through downtown Mine City. As for the other chapter I have written, we'll get to that. So right now it looks like Harry is going to be the villain of Adventures in Anarchy, because in part 1, I mean, I guess Morbius is a villain to an extent, but there is really no villain in part 1. There is one chapter with Harry, but that's it. Really the villain is introduced in the second half of the book, and it's Harry at first anyway. And I guess you can say Nakoju kind of is a villain in part 1, and maybe Matthew a bit too, but Mega and Matthew never actually meet. That's just all flashbacks from Nakoju's perspective. So I guess you can say Nakoju, towards the end anyway, I guess Nakoju kind of is a villain in part 1, but Mega never really has Mega does not have like a final duel with Nakoju. His final duel in part 1 is with Morbius, and he ends up burning alive. So, yeah. So, Harry rampages through Mine City and, fucks shit up. And so essentially, I guess security in Mine City is terrible because there's only 2 guards guarding the front gate to the Capitol building, and Harry just douses them with his potion, and they all start hallucinating things, so they're incapacitated. And Harry just hops the gate with his henchmen into the front of the Capitol building, and he's just like, "Come on, bro," to Mega, who's just up there watching. And Mega's like, "All right, that's it. It's time to go sicko mode on Harry." So Mega, using his training from Corinthius, runs down, followed by Chet and Bounty. And why they don't just call the FBI, I don't know, but they decide to fight them themselves. So they start beating the crap out of Harry's henchmen, all the while Harry's trying to hit them with his potion. He never hits Mega, Chet, or Bounty with his potion, but he accidentally misses, hits a bunch of his henchmen instead, so that incapacitates them. I think one of Harry's henchmen shoots a cop, and that really angers Mega, because then Mega like grabs the gun out of his hand and shoots him in the foot. Doesn't kill him, but incapacitates him. Uh, Chet runs into a store, grabs a baseball bat, runs back, and starts whacking the crap out of one of Harry's henchmen. But like eventually, I don't know if it's Harry or one of his. I think it's one of his henchmen because Harry himself doesn't use a gun. But one of his henchmen, uh, is about to like shoot Mega, but Bounty jumps in the way, and the bullet hits his leg, so Bounty gets shot in the leg. So of course Mega and Chet are kind of hovering over Bounty, seeing if it's okay. Harry walks up behind them and he's out of potions and he's about to throw, but he carries an axe. Harry has like a big battle axe that he carries. And he's about to like literally chop Mega's head clean off. But then finally the FBI comes in and Harry realizes at this point he's outnumbered and can't win. So he retreats into the night and they chase him, but he gets away. So they take Bounty to the hospital where they say he'll make a full recovery. They just need to get the bullet out of his leg, which they did. He said, which is they're glad he's okay. And Mega starts to question whether or not, as the leader of a country, he should really be out fighting crime on his own or even with his friends. Originally in the book, I was gonna have Liam as Robot 27 in it, but as him and I had a falling out, I just decided not to include him at all and realized there was really no point of him being there. So they all wonder who the hell Wither Knight was, and I don't know. I do not honestly remember how they figured this out, but somehow or another, they start to suspect Harry simply because it's kind of big news that he's been working on some kind of chemistry potion thing. So Mega himself goes to question Harry and finds out that Harry is in fact Wither Knight. And Harry gets the better of Mega and douses him with that fear potion, causing Mega to hallucinate flashbacks of Herobrine, because what the potion does is it makes you hallucinate something you are incredibly afraid of, and Mega starts hallucinating the whole attack of Herobrine again, and Harry's lab is like on an island. As if he couldn't be any more cliche of his villain, his evil lair is on an island. So Mega kind of it's like not too far, it's maybe like a mile offshore. But Mega kind of like manages to get away from Harry and stumbles, falls off the island and into the ocean and almost drowns, if not rescued by the Coast Guard. And before the Coast Guard can go after Harry, Harry already flees his lab and heads somewhere else. So Harry gets away again, and Mega is rescued by the Coast Guard after almost drowning in a very hallucinated state. Mega actually sleeps for 3 whole days because of that, and wakes up in his bed wakes up in the hospital 3 days later, having almost not remembering what happened after he fell into the water. Chet is incredibly furious at Mega for going after Harry himself rather than just calling the cops, and Mega says he did it because he didn't want to risk anyone else getting affected by that potion because he knew what it could do. He'd seen it. Mega and Chet have this huge argument, which ends with them feeling bitter about each other afterwards. Mega decides they need to get Harry because he can't be out on the streets in the public. being a danger to society like he is doing. So he manages to convince Bounty to tag along with him, but Chet remains unconvinced. He thinks they should just call the FBI. But Mega says, despite even in numbers, Harry has a ton of those potions, and he can amplify it to make it spread. So Mega's essentially like, okay, we gotta do something to stop Harry. And I forget, this is another one of the parts I forget, but they somehow get over to Harry's new lab. Like he set up a new location. They managed to track him down. And Harry explains why he is what he is. And I think it had this backstory where it's like he had a sister. Where I say like he came from a country that was pretty bad, and he had a sister who they had to steal food to eat because they were dirt poor, and eventually his sister got caught, and since she was over 18 she got deported, but since Harry was under 18 they couldn't deport him, so they put him in like an orphanage, and this wasn't like a terrible orphanage, but like he felt bitter after that happened, and he had like a big talent for robotics and technology, and he just kind of grew on that, and yeah, he just went to a great school and majored in robotics and chemistry, and got a PhD as well, and that's how he became a doctor. I wasn't sure if I was gonna keep that story. I felt like that was maybe a bit too much for just I don't want to say a minor character, but kind of for like a side character like Harry. I'm not sure if he needed that much of a tragic backstory, but I feel like the alternate story would have been like he just was raised to kind of be corrupt like that, and just like do anything to get what he wants. Or maybe there was no backstory, I don't know. But what I told you was the original one, but again, even back then I wasn't sure if I was going to keep that one or just kind of changed it more to be more lighthearted. Leave out his sister entirely and just kind of he did all that on his own. But the one thing that would remain same is that he went to the best school in Mine City and got a PhD in robotics, and that's in chemistry, and that's how he became a doctor. So Harry tells that to Mega, and then tries to douse Mega and Bounty with his potion, but they dodge it, and eventually Mega corners Harry, tears off his Witherite mask because he's wearing his Witherite mask to protect him from his own potion, and Mega grabs the bottle of his potion and smashes it over Harry's face, essentially affecting Harry with his own potion. And Mega's like, okay, why are you doing this? Who are you working for? Blah, blah, blah. And Harry now sees Mega as like this demon thing because he's hallucinating, and Harry is so scared that he cannot talk. So Mega grows impatient and just punches Harry in the face and knocks him out. Then the police come and arrest Harry. So this is about the turning point in the book. This moves on from this is now the third and final act of the book. It is now February 21st. It is now Mega's birthday. He's turning 28 years old in the book. And Harry has been in jail for 4 months now, and he hasn't really talked much. Has not revealed who he's working, because he did say he was working for someone, but he didn't reveal who or what the plan was. So Mega's at his house, and it's a birthday party, and like all the fine people from Mine City are there, and they're all celebrating. And suddenly Mega runs into someone. There at his party is Nakoju. Remember him from the first book, or from part 1? Yeah, and he's there, and of course it is a high tension meeting because one, Mega did not expect him to be there at all. Two, Mega did not expect to ever see him again. And three, Mega left Nikoju in a distressed state. Essentially, he hit him with a sword, knocking him out. So, Nikoju's like, "Hi, Mega, how you doing?" And at first, he does act pretty friendly towards Mega, despite what happened. Although Mega can tell there's some bitterness between them, uh, such as there is with Chet currently, only much more on a higher scale with Nikoju. And Nikoju, in talking to Mega, slowly reveals that he is the one behind Harry. Harry is working for Nikoju, and that's essentially why he made the fear potion in the first place. So, essentially, Mega's like, "Okay, I'll talk to you, but get everyone else out of here first." And Nikoju's like, "Fine, do so." And so Mega tells Chet, who's there, to like, please tell everyone to like leave. So Chet somehow like kind of makes a scene and he and Mouty takes all the guests outside, outside the mansion, leaving only Mega and Nikoju. But not really, because Mega sees some of the guests don't leave, and he recognizes them as world crafters from Corinthius. So Nikoju starts to explain to Mega what he's doing, and it's essentially Mega's big fear ever since he left Corinthius, because if you remember, Nikoju kind of wanted to annex Megacraft into Corinthius. He wanted to wipe out Megacraft's population and establish a new Corinthius there. And essentially, Nikoju still plans to do that. And he said, ever since Mega left, and even while now this is what shocks Mega, because Nikoju did this while Mega was on Corinthius. He sent some people from Corinthius to Megacraft to contact Harry, because Mega had told him about Harry back in Corinthius, and they commissioned Harry to make a potion of fear for them to use to wipe out Megacraft's population. And so Nikoju explains to Mega the reason he took him in was for Mega to lead the expedition into Megacraft. And of course Mega refused, because he's not going to betray his own country that he's the leader of. But, and Nikoju's like, "I'll do anything to save Corinthius. That's how loyal I am to my country, just as you are to yours." And Nikoju essentially says, "Hey, you remember that command block we got before?" And Mega, yeah, that command block, that whole raid thing, that was important to the plot, because that's what essentially Nikoju's going to use. And remember that airship that I described? Nikoju explains that he's essentially going to use the airship with a bunch of TNT and that command block and Harry's potions to fly into the hub of Mine City, which will cause it all to blow up, or which will cause the center of Mine City to blow up. But as for the rest of the population of the country, he's going to use that command block to amplify or increase the spread of that potion. So essentially, Harry's potion will spread all over the entire country, and it'll essentially kill off the population, or it'll make people start to kill each other out of fear. And that's how he's going to do it. So Nikoju, but Harry didn't really know that. Harry thought his plan was to essentially take over Mine City, or take over Megacraft, not wipe out the whole population. Essentially, Nikoju's plan is kind of similar, very similar to Herobrine's, but on a smaller scale. Whereas Herobrine wanted to like destroy the entire world, Nikoju doesn't want to destroy the land. He just wants to clean out the population of one small country. Even still, pretty evil. Of course, Nikoju doesn't think it's evil. He thinks he's kind of doing the right thing. Um, so essentially, Nikoju offers Mega one more chance to join him, and Mega refuses, saying that he and Nikoju are no longer friends and that he regrets ever accepting his offer in the first place. And Nikoju says, fine then. And one of the world crafters, I think I said, fun fact, Nikoju's a real person, and he has a sister named Nazi, or is it not? I feel bad for her because it's spelled Nasi. If you, I feel so bad for her, but I put her in the book, so I'm gonna call her Nazi, not Nazi, because So Nazi sneaks up behind Mega and attempts to stab him, but Mega counters. And meanwhile, Nikoju's world crafters who are there, are pouring gasoline all over Mega's house and set it on fire, as they did with the base back in Corinthius. So they set Mega's house on fire because he refused his final offer to join them. And Nikoju grabs a piece of falling board and crushes Mega under it, saying that, Mega burned down his house, so Nikoju's doing the same to him. And Nikoju and the World Crafters exit and head down to the port where they have their airship waiting. Mega's knocked unconscious under a piece of burning wood, and Chet decides to forgive Mega for the argument much earlier and run in, lifts the piece, helps Mega up, and together they narrowly escape the collapsing, burning house. So essentially, Nikoju just burned down Mega's house. So Mega vows to stop Nikoju before he can do anything, and they come up with a plan as they realize they're not going to make it down to the port in time before Nikoju takes off with his airship. So they go down there, and he has Bounty. He gives Bounty, I think, some grenades or some kind of weapon. Yeah, I think it's like a explosive weapon. And say, marks 3 locations down, because he realizes, looking at a map of Mine City and knowing how that airship works, Mega realizes the route Nikoju has to take for it. So he sends Bounty out to 3 locations to, when the airship flies by, throw an explosive at it to blow it up. Mega and Chet head down to the port to stop Nikoju. By then, if you don't know by now, Nikoju's the villain of Adventures in Anarchy. It's just not revealed until towards the end of the book. I was supposed to be like a surprise villain. So after that, they head down to the port, and the world crafters are there. Nikoju has already released a large amount of poison gas thing into the port, and people are affected, and they start attacking each other out of fear. So Mega and Chet try to try to take them out, take care of them, incapacitate the infected people from the potion. So they freed Harry from prison as well as like a thank you, and they say that they'll spare him because, of course, he has a mask, and Harry will help them establish a new Corinthius. Which, even though that's not what Harry thought that they would be doing, Harry's like, fine by me. I'll just go elsewhere when we're done. So Harry is kind of like going on another rampage throughout the port, and Mega is fighting, helping to maintain order and fighting off the infected people from Harry's potion. Harry actually corners Chet, and Chet, he's like, not, I don't know if he's about to kill Chet, but he's kind of like taunting Chet, and he says the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, mocking FDR's speech. And Chet takes out, somewhere earlier in the book, I think when they were fighting Harry earlier, Chet is like like a taser thing, or something. But Chet takes out like his taser thing that he used on one of Harry's henchmen earlier on the book. I think it was during the second time they fought him, and shoots it at Harry's face. Harry's wearing his Witherite mask, but it still hits him in the face, causing Harry to scream in pain, turn around on his skeleton horse, and ride off into the night. And that's the last you see of Harry in Adventures in Anarchy. So now it's just down to Mega and Nikoju. Mega corners Nikoju as he's about to board the airship, and Mega's like, I can take on your world crafters, and Nikoju's like, okay. So he sends 6 of his world crafters after Mega, and Mega manages to use the skills that Nikoju taught him to beat the world crafters. And then Nazi comes down, and she and Mega have one final clash, and Nazi actually kicks the shit out of Mega and corners him, knocks him down, and he's like hanging head first off the side of a building, and there's a bunch of electrical lines below, and Nazi's like, oh well, this is the end. And Mega's like, not today, fucker. And Mega does what Nikoju did to him earlier in a river, wraps his legs around Nazi's feet, and with his legs throws her over his head. She falls, hits the electrical wires, and literally fries alive. She gets electrocuted until she's nothing but a skeleton. So, and Mega kind of like watches the gruesome sight and kind of recoils a bit. But after that, he manages to jump and grab a hold to the airship as Nikoju's taking off. He dangles on the airship for a bit and realizes it's just all up to Bounty now to time his explosives right. So Mega figures, even though it's up to Bounty, he might as well distract Nikoju and manages to hoist himself up, crash into a window, and the final fight of Adventures in Anarchy begins. Now, this is the other chapter I have fully written. So, Mega, Nikoju, and Mega stare each other down, and Nikoju attacks first. He uses his sword. Mega, who brought his own sword, the sword that he used to kill Herobrine with, which was actually Herobrine's former sword in and of itself, but it lost all of its power once Herobrine died, so it's just a normal sword. They clash, and Nikoju manages to like scar Mega on his left side to match the one on his right side, but they manage to de-sword each other, so they knock each other's swords out of his hands, and it turns into a fist fight, or more of like a martial arts fight. Meanwhile, Bounty's on the ground. He's at the first location. The ship comes by, he throws his explosive, and he's too slow, it misses the ship. So now Bounty has to sprint to the next location. Meanwhile, Mega and Nikoju are still fighting, and they're taunting each other. Bounty gets to the next location, throws the explosive. This time it's too early, so he gets to the last location, which is right on a straight stretch of street right by the hub. And Bounty realizes this is his last chance. If he misses this, the ship will crash into the hub, which will cause, of course, the entire potion to spread all over the country, thus completing Nikoju's plan. Now, Nikoju realizes that since Mega's on board the ship now, he won't have enough time to get off the ship before it crashes into the hub, and realizes this has now become a suicide mission, but Nikoju, being Nikoju, accepts it and figures that Nazi will rule the World Crafters in the New Corinthians after this mission's over. Of course, Mega tells him that Nazi is dead, which kind of shocks Nikoju for a bit, and Mega takes that opportunity because Nikoju had Mega pinned to the floor. Mega throws Nikoju off and pins Nikoju to the floor, and Bounty manages to time the last explosive right, hits the ship, it blows off the side of the ship, which causes it to do a complete 180 and head towards an obsidian tower in the city, which is like, I think it's used as a parking garage, or Mega said it was like a construction building. Either way, it's an uninhabited building. There's no one in it, but it's heading right for the tower, and it's heading for the tower. And I think Mega opens, and I think the coach is like, "Have you finally learned?" And the coach is like, "Are you finally gonna kill me or something?" And Mega's like, "No." And Mega opens up the door of the ship, throws Nakoju's sword out the window, grabs his own sword. Mega opens up his elytra, revealing that he's been wearing his elytra the whole time. And I think his send-off line is, but you should learn to take your environment into consideration, because that's what Nakoju said to Mega earlier. So after Mega sends that off, he opens up his elytra and jumps out of the ship. And Nakoju turns around and sees that he's heading right for the tower, and he just realizes he can't escape and closes his eyes, accepts his fate. The ship crashes into the tower, knocks the whole thing down, and then after it screeches to a halt, the command block, which has been a countdown timer for the TNT, it all blows up and blows the entire top half of the tower off. It just takes it off entirely. And of course, Nakoju dies in the crash and the explosion. So thus, the moral is, don't be a villain in a Mega Mastermind book. You probably won't survive. But yep, Nakoju dies in the explosion. So Mega escapes and flies down, kind of silently thanks Bounty, because really, Mega himself didn't defeat Nakoju. It was Bounty who threw the bomb that hit the ship. Mega was just distracting Nakoju. But yeah, so after that, there is still one more problem to solve. What to do about all the people who don't like him. And Mega decides he's tired of being the ruler of Megacraft, and Bounty and Chet are too. So he makes a speech and says that at the end of the year they're stepping down, and everyone will get to elect a new president of Megacraft. So after that, it's a couple weeks later. Mega and Bounty meet on, I think, the balcony of Bounty's house, since Mega's staying. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know where Mega's staying now that his house is burned down. But while his house is being rebuilt, I think Mega's staying with Bounty. So Mega and Bounty are just kind of chilling on the rooftop. And Bounty's like, well, after we retire from being the president, we don't really have to work anymore since we have enough money. What do we do after this? And Mega's like, from Corinthians, I did now kind of like treasure hunting. And Bounty's like, hey, I know of something. And Bounty kind of goes into his house and brings back an old map that he has from something called the Totem of Undying. And he then tells Mega someone else might be after it too. And he shows Mega on his phone a recent news report from somewhere in a country, I don't know where, but somewhere in a country that says, well, I don't know if it's in Megacraft, but somewhere the report says that a man with red eyes has taken, or is trying to find the treasure, and has killed 2 other explorers who are trying to find it. And unknown to everyone then, I would have been referring to Mixel, who was going to be the villain of Book 3. It was Mixel's goal to get that totem. And Mega's like, well, I'll look into it. And Adventures in Anarchy just kind of ends there. That's how it ends, kind of setting the way for the 3rd book, which is another mystery entirely in and of itself. I'll save book 3 for another day. This video's gone on long enough. But yeah, that was essentially the plot of Adventures in Anarchy Part 2. That was how it was all going to come together. That being said, if you sat through this whole thing, thank you. My socials are in the description. And if you are one of the ones who bought Adventures in Anarchy or Quest to Save the World, I feel bad for you. I'm sorry for making you waste your money.